So the title of my presentation is called Building the Better Planning Network, and hopefully some aspects of my talk I think will relate to local circumstances as well, and what the Glebe Society is going through, and relating to other groups and developing networks at the local level as well. So how it all started, obviously we're a grassroots organisation, just like the Glebe Society, and it was established at the end of August last year when the Green Paper was released. I'm also the president of an organisation called the Corinne Fisher Conservation Society, which is almost as old as the Glebe Society, which was founded in 1971. And that society has always had an interest in planning. We've got lots of planners involved, we've got architects involved. But I wasn't so involved in the planning review, except for at the end of August, a few of us attended a presentation on the Green Paper, and I came home and I couldn't sleep that night. I was just so shocked by what was happening that I went home and I thought, no, we just can't take this lying down. And we called a meeting of about 20 community groups across the North Shore and in the Ryde area. And at that meeting, we decided to form a campaign called the Better Planning Network that was not going to be aligned with any political party, will be volunteer-based, and would try and influence what was happening with the planning review. Where we are today, we've got more than 120 community groups affiliated with us across New South Wales, heritage groups, societies such as this one, environmental groups, lots and lots of progress associations, resident action groups, and then major groups such as the Nature Conservation Council, the Royal Australian Historical Society, National Parks Association of New South Wales, etc. We've got a strong online presence, we've got a fast-growing email database, and the power of the network isn't in the fact that we've got 420 groups. I want to make this really clear. The group is led by a leadership group, which coordinates its action. But the strength of the network is that we can reach into many local communities across New South Wales and activate those communities in their local area, to pressure their local MP, to get into their local media, to do stalls, to distribute flyers. Okay? There's no way that all these actions could be driven from central level. And we've got increasing media coverage, and therefore we're running now a major campaign on the planning review. So just on a personal note, many people often ask me, well, why did you get involved? What made you commit to this insane campaign which has taken over your life for the past year? And I guess my answer is first of all about my upbringing. I come from a Jewish family. On my mother's side, her whole family, practically except her parents, were exterminated in the Second World War, Eastern Europe. My father's side, his father came from a very poor family, and incidentally, both my grandparents were very aware of social justice issues and active politically to get a better deal for people in their communities. So I grew up with funny parents that aren't really involved at all in a civic way. My father lives on a boat, on a yacht, has done so for the last 20 years, so he's dropped out because he can't stand what's going on. So that was his solution. My mother is, not involved in activism at all. And I personally wasn't involved until this Better Planning Network campaign, although I was always, an environmentalist and wanting to care for environment, but I wasn't actively involved. However, I did grow up with this strong sense of social justice and fairness, which I think has influenced my involvement in this campaign. Got a background as an environmentalist, belief in fairness and social justice. At a professional background, I worked in the public service for the last 12 years. So that gave me very good skills, that equipped me with quite good skills and knowledge to go into this campaign. And of course, the Corinne Conservation Society, which, like the society, has just got some wonderful pioneers that really have inspired me to do what I'm doing and are supporting me at a local level. So what worked? Well, from the beginning, we decided to keep it very simple. So we did not incorporate until much later in the piece. We really just kept it very simple. We had people self-nominate for our leadership group. We just put together a platform of policies, which is still the same today and can be found on the net, on our website. But beyond this two-page document, which is the basis on which groups such as the Society affiliate with us, we kept it very simple. And we worked on the common ground. So an example of something that wasn't the common ground, which we are still avoiding today, densification. Okay, we've got some groups that in our network that are very much against densification of suburbs. And then some other groups, for instance, that are located around the fringe of Sydney, that are actually worried about urban sprawl. So this definitely wasn't common ground, and so we avoided it. What we found was the common ground is a planning system that supports ecologically sustainable development principles, that has community well-being at its heart, that protects community rights to influence local planning and development decisions, protects our environment and heritage, and minimises corruption. So that is basically our platform, and that is the common ground, which is the glue between all of the groups that are involved in the network. As I said before, we avoided areas of disagreement. Putting the ego aside, I want to say how important it is, and particularly for me, how important it has been for me to do that. Very rapidly, we got to a position where we were getting a lot of media attention, and I was getting a lot of interviews, and suddenly I was in the Sydney Morning Herald, and I was on Quentin Dempster, and, people were and I was very much thrust into a position of leadership, much faster than what I expected. And so, it's been an ongoing challenge for me, because we're only, miserable little human beings that all, have some of us have a bigger ego than others, but we all have an ego, that's for sure. And it's very tempting, to sort of be overwhelmed by this attention and forget what good democracy and good governance is about. So I have really tried, not always successfully, to just be really focused on what we want to achieve, and on the fact that this requires me and others, particularly within the leadership group, to put their ego aside and be focused on the mission and on where we want to get to. And I think this is something that is important for every group. And in fact, looking at our own Lanco Bush and Conservation Society group, this is something that when I joined the society, 5 years ago, this is something that really attracted me to the group. That everyone had the same agenda, and that was about bettering bushland and environment in Lane Cove. And that, of course we had our usual disagreement, but generally people felt that this was their mission and their focus, and they were able to put their ego aside. And that's very important for every group. Networking. Now, one of the first things, and we're very fortunate to have a lady called Leonie Dean, who some of you may have spoken to on the phone, who was part of the leadership group from the beginning, and had the incredible stamina to search the web and identify community contacts all over New South Wales. And what Leonie did for the first 6 months is literally sit on the phone in her pajamas from 9 a.m. to late at night and phone people and tell them what was happening, and got hold of key community contacts and just kept ringing them and kept explaining to them, kept telling them about what we were trying to do and asking them to affiliate with us. And eventually she got from 20 to 420 groups. Networking is very important. Working with people's strengths, skills, and passion. That's something else that I've been practicing doing. So really identifying where people can actually make a contribution. What are their skills? What do they love doing? There's no point, asking someone whose skills are filmmaking, for instance, to sit on the phone and ring people, all day long. That's just not making good use of people's skills and what they enjoy doing as well. Letting others take the lead. This is so important, and I'm still, learning about this because, the temptation is wanting it to do it all yourself. And I'm, a perfectionist and a control freak in terms of the quality of the work that comes out of the organisation. So this is a real challenge for me, but it absolutely needs to happen. This is in a local organisation, but also in a statewide organisation. If you want to create a sense of ownership in the organisation, these are basic community development principles. If you want to create a sense of ownership in the organisation, you must let others take the lead where possible. And there's lots, and of course this has led to challenges, but also to lots of ideas that I would never have thought about. So one example is the hazard tape. The hazard tape that is John will actually unrolling. This is an idea that came from a number of people that were outside of the leadership group. Now this is hazard tape that is about to be launched, and you're welcome to take some today.
Yes, we'll have some.
Yeah. It's I've wrapped the tree in my front yard, with this, and we've also got core flutes that you can order. Okay, and I've got the contacts, which you can people can contact to order those. So these have come from ideas outside of the leadership group. We didn't actually lead that. Okay, it happened. Very, very important. Letting others take the lead. What was challenging? People relationships, and people relationships. Very hard. This is an issue that people are passionate about. They want to see change and, have different ideas about how to achieve that change. So again, that's where, it's very important to absolutely reduce conflicts, nasty conflicts, by putting the ego aside. And I've had to apologize many times and to just, step back and say, okay, I got it wrong here. This is very important. The lack of resources, which you would be experiencing as well at local level. Staying focused, sticking to the priorities, taking on too much, and family. Of course, my family has taken a blow in the last 12 months. I've got 2 little girls, 6 and 3, and a husband who's very patient, but, has been quite stoic through it all. But, is getting a little bit tired of the intensity, because it's been about 50 hours a week of work for the past 12 months. So that's a challenge as well. Where next? The long-term sustainability of the BPN. Now, when we formed this organisation, we never expected it to be that big. But what people are saying to us now is, because we're now a key stakeholder in and shaper of the debate on planning, we can't possibly walk away from this organisation and just finish with it. I think that would be a missed opportunity for communities. So we're talking about how do we sustain this organisation long term, and I'm keen to hear your ideas in the comment and question section. I am not the BPN, so this is another challenge. Because I've been the spokesperson for the BPN, people think, BPN can't exist without Corinne, but it can. We need to talk about how that happens, but I am not the BPN. Money, of course, which is linked to long-term sustainability, focus, and our role. What will be our role past the planning review? Would love your thoughts. And just one last point. I'm not going to go into detail in the campaign because I want to leave some time for questions. But I'll just note, outside are template letters to various politicians. If you could actually sign those, okay, there's about 5 different ones, sign those, we will put them in a post, or maybe the Glebe Society can put them in the post in individual envelopes, okay, that will be sent over the next 3 weeks. Now, you know that the planning bills are scheduled for introduction in Parliament in the next 3 weeks. We think we have a chance and an opportunity to get this legislation thrown out of the upper house, because the shooters and fishers are now quite pissed off with the government. All right? Shooters and fishers and Labor, plus the Greens, can ensure that this legislation is thrown out of Parliament. This is the opportunity that we have, and we must make maximum use of this opportunity in the next 3 weeks to increase pressure